Hope, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us, and congratulations on finally getting this project released and out into the world. I know it's been a bit of a wait. So maybe you could just start by telling us, how did you first get involved with this project, The Uncertain Kingdom, and what was it about it that made you want to be a part of it?
John actually called me and said, do you want to make a film? I'm just about to commission some, love you to do one. And I said, well, that's funny because I've just been thinking about punching people in my boxing class and what a fun film that would make. So it was sort of happened very quickly. He came to me, I already had an idea, and we just kind of worked on the idea a bit to kind of, make it into a film, and that was it. So it was a really simple birth of a film, which is very unusual.
And was it frustrating that there had to be this bit of a delay on putting it out? Because I guess it was reacting to a certain moment in time, and we've got COVID that's hit us in the meantime, yet these issues are still bubbling underneath the surface. So how has that worked for you in terms of having to shift the timing of it a bit?
I think what was intriguing to me was this opportunity to make something that was very, very reactive to stuff that was going on. And my film is about female anger, and it's sort of, the idea started around the Me Too movement. So it's quite a long time ago now, really, is kind of how it started. But this sense of not having any power and feeling unable to deal with those emotions has continued as our political landscape has become more complicated and more sort of extraordinary over the last 2 or 3 years. So even though the film's release was delayed a little bit, actually, because it was reacting to something that was a little while ago now, a couple of months hasn't made that much difference, I don't think. And as you say, I think what's interesting about these films coming out now is that it's reminding us of all these things that were there and that will still be there. And that actually, I think right now, people are suddenly starting to think about again. We're suddenly faced with no deal Brexit again. We're suddenly, these things are back on the table. And as well as sort of all the inequality that's been really brought to light by the COVID experience, and kind of watching as society has kind of become more aware of the mechanisms upon which it relies, I think a lot of the films actually might speak more powerfully to audiences right now. So, I don't think in the end a month or two has made that much difference.
And coming to the particular film that you decided to make as part of this anthology, Stronger is Better Than Angry, I guess, was it from your own personal experience being in those classes? Why did you think this captured kind of how you wanted to react to the brief, if you like?
It started really personally. I mean, I was sort of struggling with some stuff, and I was punching people sort of in my class, and then I just found myself looking around and wondering who else everyone else was punching, in my class, and maybe that's not what they were doing, but it sort of started as that particular experience, and you kind of open it up a bit, and so I wanted to find out who, what was bothering other people, and so that was why it sort of moved from being a drama, which was my original idea, to becoming more of a sort of hybrid documentary, where we auditioned, invited a lot of people in to talk about their anger, and then they actually sort of became the heart of the film, because I think anger comes from so many different places, and it can be about really things that feel really trivial, but it can be about things that are absolutely awful and enormous, and so trying to make a film that kind of encompasses all of those was really a challenge. But I think by having a wide range of people being able to speak directly of their own experiences, it kind of opened up, it allowed everything to kind of coexist in one story. So I think yes, it was personal at first. I mean, it's always personal, isn't it, anger? But but I like to think that people will identify with different people, and obviously you may not agree with the people that they were angry with, but hopefully you can understand. I'm sure everybody feels anger at certain people in the world sometimes, and not knowing what to do with that anger, I think, is really what the film's about.
And how did you go about choosing all the particular women that you have? Like, I just love the range. You know, it's like a really diverse in terms of age, ethnicity, background, and in this very short space of time, you get a glimpse into each of their lives. And you know, some it's like quite humorous, others is very moving, almost saying, you know, without this class, I might not be here today. So, how did you go about choosing these particular people?
I mean, we sort of did a call out, and we just invited people to come and talk, and whoever was willing to do it. I mean, it was quite funny because obviously, you know, you do a call out for a documentary and inevitably lots of actresses turn up. We're like, not sure you're angry enough. But all these women, yeah, it was a conscious decision to make sure we had a very diverse mix of women on every kind of level. I mean, I think the one what we didn't achieve is we didn't really achieve ability, and we didn't find any disabled women. It was sort of complicated to do that in a film which is about physical activity. I think that's sort of a different film that I maybe need to make next. But apart from that, I think, you know, we really wanted to make sure we had a very broad cross section of womanhood, and I love that, because I love sort of what I hope you can kind of get the feeling from, but maybe not, is that when we made it, these women all actually really connected. And so you have the kind of the wiser elder kind of absolutely sitting and listening to young people who are furious about things that are now, and she's learned so much about how to what to do with her anger, and how to look after herself, and you know, so it was a really kind of wonderful experience, actually, of bringing these people together and making the film, because they were so generous with each other and with their stories and with listening and with thinking about what the others might need, and really going out of their way to make space for each other. So it was a really special experience from that point of view as well.
And I mean, one of the most striking moments, I think, is smack bang in the middle of it. We do have this dummy head of David Cameron, who sort of quite cleverly, you know, it shows the bruising coming on his face. So what inspired that particular scene? And, you know, how did you actually go about it, kind of logistically making that work?
Hard, yeah. So I mean, that was, you know, the kind of beginning of the film for me was this idea, and actually I wanted 10 of these. I wanted a whole range of different heads. I wanted them to be kind of cross political spectrum. I wanted it just to show that you know, actually you need to kind of feel sort of empowered for a second, you know, and you know, for it to be a bit shocking for us to see this kind of violence that we contain within. It was hard when we figured out from the budget that we were only going to be able to have one. That was the that was the really hard bit, because we had to decide who it was going to be. So I think we sort of ended up on him because Brexit felt like this kind of opening of this can of worms that has kind of snowballed into so many other things. And plus he just has a really good face. You know, there's something really smug about his face. So that was kind of really helpful. But it was really complicated to make him. We sort of looked at the masks you can buy, you know, that you can buy all those crazy Halloween masks of world leaders, and you know, they just weren't very good. And what I wanted it to look like, those punch, you know, there are these figures you get in gyms of people, so it needed to look like that. So it was actually very complicated. We ended up bringing in a 3D digital artist who worked with some photos that I found, and he designed him on this kind of incredible technology, this incredible software, and then we printed him out a 3D model. But that was, you know, really thin plastic. And then from that, we worked with a guy who does a lot of models and prosthetics and things for films. And he then built a kind of a cast. And then we had to fill the cast. And we had to work out what kind of percentage silicone would give the right kind of bounce, because we wanted the fist to land in a certain way, and we wanted the nose to move a certain, you know. So it was really fun, actually. I was kind of going, God, this is amazing. I love this. I want to make a film with tons of special effects next, so I can play with all these toys. But I mean, the skill available, you know, the skill of these two artists who kind of put this together was really spectacular. The guy who did the final kind of head. He's the same guy who did the baby in Trainspotting, you know, the baby that crawls along the
No
ceiling in
way. Oh my
Trainspotting. Yeah,
God.
so he's got that kind of in his workshop. So yeah, he's fantastic. And so it's a really beautiful thing, actually. And I still have it. I have it in my bathroom, you know. And it's kind of a work of art, I think. But yeah, but you know, I think it could be many people, but you know, that's who it was.
And if you had been on the other end of one of these interviews, you know, what would you have said that makes you the most angry? Would it have been a figure, David Cameron, Donald Trump, Nigel Farage, or Jacob Rees-Mogg, or something more, you know, general like the patriarchy? I don't know. What would be your thing to try and smash?
My thing is, I hate not being listened to. Absolutely hate it. I mean, it's from my children not listening to me to kind of society not listening to us, and so I think that really goes through as a kind of thread of the thing that triggers me very quickly. So actually, it was really rewarding to hear other people say that, because I was like, yes, that's what I agree with. So which is an interesting thing for a filmmaker to feel. You know, maybe motivates me to try and get my voice heard. But I think lots of us feel like that.
And what do you hope that people are going to take away from this film? I mean, I think people are feeling, I think you're right, despite with coronavirus in some ways putting our lives on pause, in another way, it's actually given time to reflect. And I know the Black Lives Matter movement is something completely separate, but it does feel like people are actually, there's an appetite out there for change. And do you think that some of the issues raised in your film and the anthology more generally, that hits, you know, a nerve in terms of these issues that we do want to see bigger change on?
I think when the virus first struck and we all went into lockdown, we were all kind of, there didn't seem to be much room for anger. There was a real sort of generosity, wasn't there? A kind of kindness that I think we all needed. I was in New York for 9/11. It was very similar to that. It was kind of like, you know, we just all need to be careful with each other. But I think, and then there was a sort of sense that, yes, I suspect the country will move left after this, because, you know, the government is propping up people's lives. You know, there were kind of structural decisions and machinations happening that seemed to suggest that better would happen. But as is so often the case, as people were sort of hungry to get the world back, it became very clear that we were going to sacrifice people, the same people whose voices, you know, so many of us have spent the last 10 years trying to kind of lift up and trying to include in society and in the workplace. And so it's interesting that we've now hit a period of I think real anger again. And I think Dominic Cummings obviously is a huge part of that in this country. But it is sort of extraordinary. I think slightly perfect storm at the moment. I think, you know, we are ready to be responsive possibly to things that are going on. I hope we are. I hope that change will actually happen. And you know, this surge of appetite to talk about change and to talk about how things should be differently and how people should be treated differently, I hope that sticks. But you know, it won't be quick, it won't be easy, it never is. But I'm very proud that these films are sort of all pushing in that way and you know, asking the tough questions. So that's what we can do as artists, I guess.
And I think I'm out of time, but just a final question would be, you know, what other projects have you got on the go at the moment? What can we see from you next?
I mean, who knows? I know we're officially allowed to go back to work now with all these things in place in the film industry, but I'm not sure how quickly that's going to happen. So I'm not sure which of my projects is going to move fastest. So I don't know. I've got several films and I've got a couple of TV shows, and I'm writing away. I'm writing a new project which is sort of very agile, lightweight, 2 people in a house, you know, that can be made in a kind of COVID, you know, scenario. But, you know, the projects I've been pouring my heart and soul into for the last few years are not that. They're much bigger and you know, hopefully they will get made at some point too, but probably not this year.
And hopefully get people back into cinemas at some point. Although, I mean, at least it's something we can do digitally, and unlike theatre, well, unless it's recordings. But yeah, it would be nice to actually get back to the cinema experience, I suppose.
God, I miss it. I miss it so much. I think we all do. That and swimming. That's all I'm dreaming of at the moment.
One day soon, let's hope. Okay, but that's been wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing all that with us, and hope the rest of lockdown goes okay for you and you get those projects and getting running again soon.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Thank
Thanks.
you.